Start counting. 1840, dead. 1860, dead. 1880, dead. 1900, dead. 1920, dead. 1940, dead. 1960, dead. 7 men, 7 presidents, elected exactly 20 years apart, and every single one of them died in office. You can call it a coincidence. You can call it bad luck. But if you go back to the dusty history books of the frontier, you will find a different name for it. They call it the Curse of Tippecanoe. And the scariest part isn't that it worked 7 times in a row. The scariest part is how it finally stopped. Welcome back. I hope you're sitting comfortably. Tomorrow is January 20th, Inauguration Day. It is a day of parades, speeches, and Bibles. But beneath the celebration, there is a shadow that stretches back more than 200 years to a campfire in the Indiana Territory. To understand why John F. Kennedy died in Dallas or why Lincoln died in a theater, you do not need to look at the shooters. You need to look at a one-eyed Native American prophet named Tenskwatawa. The year was 1811. The American frontier was burning. General William Henry Harrison, a tough, stubborn man, was pushing the Shawnee tribes off their land. He marched his army to the Tippecanoe River and burned the Shawnee village of Prophetstown to the ground. It was a massacre. Harrison thought he had won. He thought he had crushed the rebellion led by the great warrior Tecumseh and his brother, the prophet. But he made a mistake. You can burn a village, but you cannot burn a spirit. Legend says that the prophet stood over the ashes of his home and spoke to the wind. He did not just curse Harrison, he cursed the great white fathers. He said, Harrison will die, and after him every great chief chosen every 20 years will die. And when each one dies, let everyone remember the death of my people. Harrison laughed. In 1840, he ran for president. His slogan was Tippecanoe and Tyler too. He used the battle as a badge of honor. He won. On Inauguration Day, March 4th, 1841, Harrison wanted to prove how tough he was. It was a freezing, wet day in Washington, but Harrison refused to wear a coat. He refused to wear a hat. He rode a horse, not a carriage. He stood in the freezing rain and gave the longest speech in history, 2 hours long. He wanted to show the world he was strong. Instead, he caught a cold. The cold turned into pneumonia. Exactly 1 month later, he was dead. The first gear of the clock had clicked into place. The curse had begun. 20 years later, 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected. We all know how this story ends. A civil war that tore the country apart. A man named John Wilkes Booth. A pistol in a theater box. Lincoln had dreams about his death before it happened. He saw himself in a coffin. Was it premonition, or was it the clock ticking? 20 years later, 1880, James A. Garfield. Now, this is where the story gets gruesome. Most people think Garfield was killed by an assassin. He was not. He was shot. Yes, a crazy lawyer named Charles Guiteau shot him in a train station. But the bullet did not kill him. The doctors killed him. The bullet was lodged in his back. It was not fatal. But the doctors of 1881 did not believe in germs. They did not wash their hands. 12 different doctors stuck their unwashed fingers into the bullet hole, digging around, trying to find the lead. They turned a small wound into a massive infection. Here is a detail most people miss. They called in Alexander Graham Bell, the man who invented the telephone. He built a primitive metal detector to find the bullet. It did not work. Do you know why? Because nobody realized the president was lying on a brand new invention, a mattress with steel springs. The metal detector was confused by the bed. Garfield died in agony, rotting from the inside out. The curse did not just take his life, it tortured him. 20 years later, 1900. William McKinley, he was a popular president. He won re-election easily. 6 months into his term, he went to the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. It was a celebration of technology and the future. But death was waiting in the receiving line. A young anarchist stood in line to shake the president's hand. He had a handkerchief wrapped around his right hand like a bandage. The guards looked at it and felt sorry for him. They thought he was injured. They did not check the bandage. Inside the handkerchief was a .32 caliber revolver. 2 shots, point blank. The curse claimed number 4. 20 years later, 1920. Warren G. Harding. Harding was not shot. He was not a war hero. He was just a man who liked poker and whiskey a little too much. But the clock did not care. In 1923, he went on a voyage of understanding, a tour across the country. In San Francisco, he suddenly collapsed. The official story was a stroke, or maybe a heart attack, but there were rumors, strange rumors. His wife, Florence, refused to let them do an autopsy. She had him embalmed within an hour. Some say she poisoned him to save him from a corruption scandal. Some say it was bad crab meat. But the result was the same. The president elected in 1920 came home in a box. 20 years later, 1940. Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR was a titan. He was the only president to serve more than 2 terms. He thought he could outrun anything. Polio, the Great Depression, Hitler. He survived the election of 1940. He survived 1944. The curse seemed to be waiting. It was patient. On April 12, 1945, he was sitting for a portrait painting. He looked at the artist and said, "I have a terrific headache." Then he slumped forward, massive cerebral hemorrhage. He died just months before the end of World War II. He broke the rules of the presidency, but he could not break the rules of the curse. 20 years later, 1960, John F. Kennedy, young, charismatic, the symbol of a new generation. When he was elected, people had forgotten about the curse. It was an old superstition from the history books. But on November 22, 1963, under the bright sun of Dallas, the pattern completed its most horrific cycle. The young king was struck down. The world wept, and suddenly, statisticians and historians started looking at the numbers. 1840, 1860, 1880, 1900, 1920, 1940, 1960, 7 for 7, a perfect batting average for the Grim Reaper. Then came 1980, Ronald Reagan, the actor, the cowboy, the oldest man ever elected president at that time. Everyone held their breath. If the curse was real, Reagan was a dead man walking. And on March 30th, 1981, just 69 days after his inauguration, it happened. John Hinckley, Jr. stepped out of a crowd in Washington. 6 shots in 1.7 seconds. A bullet ricocheted off the side of the limousine. It hit Reagan under the armpit. It punctured his lung and stopped just 1 inch from his heart. Reagan walked into the hospital under his own power, but collapsed in the hallway. He was bleeding to death. He looked at the surgeons and joked, I hope you are all Republicans. He lost half his blood. He was 70 years old. By all logic, he should have died, but he did not. He survived. Why? Maybe modern medicine finally caught up with the curse. Maybe the bullet was a millimeter too far to the left. Or maybe he had help. It is a known fact that Nancy Reagan, the First Lady, was obsessed with astrology. After the shooting, she hired an astrologer, Joan Quigley. For the rest of his presidency, Reagan's schedule was dictated by the stars. He would not sign a bill, take a trip, or make a speech unless the planets were aligned. Did the stars save him? Or did the curse simply run out of steam after 140 years? Reagan broke the chain. Since then, look at the timeline. 2000, George W. Bush. He faced danger. Do you remember? In 2005, in the country of Georgia, a man threw a live grenade at him while he was on stage. The pin was pulled. The grenade hit a handkerchief and did not explode. It was a dud. The curse tried, but it failed. 2020. Joe Biden. He is still with us. So, tomorrow, when you see the hand placed on the Bible and the oath taken, remember the shadow of Prophetstown. We like to think we are modern people. We have drones and AI and vaccines. But there is something primal about power. There is a blood price for leadership that goes back to the very soil of this continent. The lesson of the curse isn't about ghosts. It is about consequences. It is a reminder that history has a long memory. You can bury your enemies, but you cannot bury the past. It always finds a way to claw its way back to the surface. But don't let these dark stories keep you up tonight. The past is there to teach us, not to scare us. We made it through those stormy years, and we will make it through whatever comes next, together. I am so glad you stopped by our table today. If you enjoy these trips back in time, please do me a favor. Click that subscribe button and join our little family. We have plenty more stories to tell, some sweet, some scary, but all of them true. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. This is Pop Pop, signing off. Bye now.